Right, before you start, I know this is Oscar's Garage, not Oscar's Airport. However, this is a really interesting story I came across, of course, looking for Triumph Spitfires, and I thought it was one that needed telling because nobody else seems to have done it. So stick with me, you're going to enjoy this. So this is the story of Spitfire Bridge. Now, Spitfire Bridge was part of Winchester Bypass. Now, this was built during the 1930s, which is quite early for bypasses really. But if you wanted to get from London down to Southampton, Winchester was in the way. So they built this bypass around it and put a cutting through an area known as St Giles Hill. Now, this bridge was quite an impressive structure. It carried the A31 over the A33 Winchester bypass, and it was a concrete parabolic bridge apparently, and as you can tell by the pictures, it does look quite impressive. The bridge itself opened in 1940 along with the rest of the Winchester bypass, and the following year, 1941, in fact the 19th of October, locals saw a fighter plane, and of course it was a Spitfire, come under the bridge and fly off into the distance. Of course, this quickly became the thing of legend, and the name stuck to the bridge of Spitfire Bridge. So was this myth or legend? Well, for this I really need to give credit to Melvin Hiscock, who was a local historian, musician, pilot, who in 1988, through delving into the Public Records Office, found out what really happened. Now, it was a pilot known as George Rogers, who was flying for the Royal Canadian Air Force, and it was in the 400 Squadron, and he was actually flying a P-40 Tomahawk, not a Spitfire. And he was flying back from Eastleigh, which was down on the south coast, up to Odium, and not far off his route was the bridge on the Winchester bypass. So he decided to have a go and see if he could get through it. Now, you're interested, I am sure, on the numbers of this one. Well, the bridge span itself was 56 feet. The plane wingspan, 37 feet. So yes, the ones of you that are quick with the mental arithmetic, that's 9.5 feet aside as he went through the bridge. Now, you can probably imagine, back in 1941 when this happened, the roads themselves weren't actually that busy. However, as he came through under the bridge, he came across an oncoming truck, which was pretty unlucky, took avoiding action to miss it, and took 3 foot off the end of his port wing. Now, despite this sort of self-inflicted damage, he did manage to get the plane back to Odium. And if we look at the crash report, which I believe should be accredited to Melvin, he actually came in to land at quite a high speed apparently, and on landing, unfortunately, the aircraft, according to the accident report here, was inverted. George managed to get out without too many injuries, apparently a few facial injuries, and obviously had to explain why there was 3 foot missing off his port wing, and admitted to his little incident with the bridge at Winchester. Now, to see how many of you were paying attention earlier when I showed you the picture of the Spitfire, wasn't a Spitfire, this is actually the P-40 Tomahawk. So it just shows you how similar these planes were. And the other thing is, I'm sure somebody is going to bring up this image. We're showing the plane going under the bridge. Now, it's a fake. And there are many reasons to tell it's a fake, because you should see this other picture. Oh look, the plane's gone, and the rest of it's identical. And it was obviously a picture taken whilst the bridge was being built. And as we already mentioned, this happened over a year after the road had opened. And the other thing is a very good explanation by Nick Ad here, who is a pilot, he says, and explains why the plane is at the wrong angle, etc., to be able to be going through the bridge. So this one's a fake. So when Melvin Hiscock came up with all this information, doing all this research in 1988, did they rename the bridge? No, they didn't, because In 1983, the bridge was demolished as the M3 was blasted through on the route of the A31, and it was replaced with this bridge here. So Spitfire Bridge was no more, but locally they didn't forget it, because the A31, which was rerouted to run parallel to the M3, was renamed Spitfire Away. Now, this is the point where I would like to show you a nice picture of the signs on Spitfire Away, but this is one end, and as you can see, it's fairly worn, to say the least. So I thought, no, it's no problem. I'll go to the other end of the road. And yeah, it's overgrown. So I hope you found that really interesting. A little bit different for us here at Oscar's Garage, but I thought it was such a great story that you'd like to hear about it. And if you've enjoyed this video, have a look at this one as well.